All right, welcome in. The alarm update is a live today. Here from Visalia. And during the 49ers offseason of spending cutbacks that have seen the 49ers move back to number 15 in cash spend. You could see where San Francisco is here, down at number 15. They were number one last year at $334 million. So you've seen the 49ers drop down to the middle of the pack. The question is, who gets paid next? Because expenditures are coming and big ones are coming. In fact, Brock Purdy, who we know is on the list of 49ers to get paid, he might get a signing bonus that is big enough to vault the 49ers back up to number one on this list this offseason. So let's summarize. The 49ers, over the course of John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan's tenure, have generally, more often than not, been in the top five of salary cash spent in each season. In 2024, they were at $334.5 million in salary cash spent, which ranked number one in this list. Here in 2025, they've seen a big spending deficit. A lot of free agents have gone elsewhere, and the 49ers have actually used the least money per year per contract on their new free agents. They've averaged new deals of only $2.3 million APY so far. So that has seen a drop down to number 15. However, what the 49ers are doing, they're essentially just clearing the forest here so that the biggest trees have more room to grow, have more room to see that robust kind of growth. They are building around their pillars. So the 49ers have said, we're not going to pay B-list players because the ROI on that was terrible last season when the defense dropped down near the bottom of the league. They're not trying to rush to cram in a title since they saw how far they were last season with that strategy. They're saying we want to refortify the A-list core of this team while getting younger, faster, healthier, and stronger around that A-list core. So the next step in this team building effort for the 49ers in the offseason, after they've cleared out a lot of the fat, is to refortify the pillars. And that means paying a group of players whose contracts are not yet up, but getting on top of these payments early. And the one that we've been talking about the most is obviously Brock Purdy. Now, I'm going to get to Jauan Jennings, George Kittle, and maybe the 49ers even get to Fred Warner this offseason, but we're going to talk about all those guys. It's like the Mount Rushmore of guys who I think can get paid this offseason. But we should start with the Purdy contract dynamics because the signing bonus of this Purdy deal is going to be very, very large. How big will it be? Well, I can tell you that Jared Goff and Jordan Love both had signing bonuses of over $70 million on their contracts. And of course, Brock Purdy's contract is going to be comparable, probably greater than those two deals. I don't know if the signing bonus itself will be bigger, but teams generally like to use the signing bonus because they could stretch out the cap hits over up to 5 years. The reason I bring up the signing bonus is that money is going to be spent this year by the 49ers. Signing bonus money hits your bank account right away. So take a look at the list of cash spent this season. The 49ers at number 15, if we scroll across, the cursor's on their row, by the way, here, then we see that the 49ers are at $252.7 million in spend. All right, so scroll up now to the very top. We see the Buffalo Bills. They're at $304.6 million in spend. So that is about 53 million over where the 49ers are at right now. So say the 49ers ink Brock Purdy to a deal with a $60 million signing bonus. Say that it's not even as big as Jared Goff's or Jordan Love's, but say that there is about $60 million in year one cash, which I think is reasonable to expect based on these other quarterback contracts. It would add to this tally. It would add to the $252 million. You add $60 million to it. New expenditures for the 49ers would be above $300 million. They would be right back at number one in spending in the league. Like, they might vault right back to number one. So I hope you can understand the financial reset that the 49ers had to go through, not just because of this Purdy contract, but a big reason is that once you are paying big money to the quarterback, you have to make sure your other finances are in order. I think that the biggest impetus toward the financial reset this offseason was the 49ers play. If you sucked in 2024, especially on defense, you shouldn't be paying $10 million chunks to very flawed veterans. You should probably be looking how you renovate the unit. The house was deteriorating for the 49ers. They got to make sure that the chipped paint, the broken windows, the sagging floor, and to make sure that all of that is taken care of with new materials this offseason, which is why they're focusing on the NFL draft. Anyway, when you talk about paying players early, Brock Purdy obviously still has a year left on his deal, but that contract's going to have to happen this offseason for San Francisco. That's just the way that business works in the NFL with an A-list quarterback. And then when we talk about paying early, the sooner the better this offseason, because the 49ers want to make sure Purdy's taken care of, and they want to make sure that the team is ready to go for OTAs and then training camp. He is the centerpiece as the quarterback. But what about the other players? Purdy obviously qualifies. Don't let A-list players play on lame duck deals, but guys like George Kittle and Jauan Jennings are also entering the final seasons of their contracts. George Kittle is the one that we've been talking about the most. If you want to take a look at where his deal is right now, we can refer to Over the Cap. This is the George Kittle contract at the very moment. He is set for a $14.4 million base salary in 2025. And then after that, the contract is over. We move into void years, which are prorations of signing bonus money for salary cap purposes into the future. Say that Kittle's tenure with the 49ers ended after 2025. This money that is in the void year proration, 6.6 plus 4.5 plus 2.4 million, would accelerate and hit as dead money in 2026. So that's the bar tab that the 49ers owe for George Kittle's contract against the cap. This is one of the best tight ends, I think, in league history. I think by the time it's all said and done for George Kittle, that's the way that we're going to be talking about him. So I think that the 49ers realize the same thing. He's still playing prime football. You don't let A-list players play on lame duck deals. A-list players also don't want to play on lame duck deals. You risk a holdout if that happens. George Kittle is going to need a new contract, more security, something at the top of the tight end market, because he is the very best that the game has to offer. Now, here's the good news for the 49ers in terms of the salary cap. Kittle's cap number this year is $22 million. Once you do pay him, you're going to reduce his base salary to the league minimum. It's going to be about $1.3 million on the escalator from last year. He's going to get a new signing bonus. That new signing bonus is going to spread out into the future via signing, option bonus, or both. So the cap hit's actually going to go down for George Kittle, maybe by about $10 million with his new contract. You're okay with doing that because he's an A-list player, and you refortify around A-list players because those are the guys that usually are going to deliver very solid return on investment. So standard operating procedure for this offseason will be a Brock Purdy contract, will be a George Kittle contract. The Purdy contract, because of the way that the 49ers are going to structure things, we've seen this with all of their deals over the past several years, the 49ers are going to actually be able to keep the salary cap hit relatively low. Here's my proposed Brock Purdy contract, a $15 million cap hit in year one. In the case of George Kittle, the 49ers will be able to actually lower the 2025 cap hit. So essentially, it's almost cancels itself out. Purdy's cap hit right now is $5 million. I think that a new deal would raise the cap hit to $15 million. Kittle's current cap hit is $22 million. I think that a new deal would lower the cap hit to $12 million. As you can see, that is a $10 million increase for Purdy in terms of the 2025 cap situation, and a $10 million decrease for Kittle. That is net zero. So your 2025 cap space would stay at around $40 million. The 49ers have typically carried over about $40 million from season to season because they believe that is the healthiest, most sustainable way to surf the rising salary cap. So I would look for them to also carry over 30 to 40 million this year. When I set up the build your roster for you guys, I encouraged you to leave over 20 million in room. I was being generous so you could have a little bit more fun building your football team. But I noted that the 49ers every year had liked to carry over about 40 million. I think that's what they're going to try to do so they can continue to pay the foundational pillars year over year, because costs in this league do rise over time. So, Purdy's deal, the one that I proposed here, cap hit of 15, 23, 29 million. That gets more expensive every year. And then you have to look into restructures and continual surfing of the wave in 28 through 2030. So we don't let A-list players play on lame duck deals in the NFL. Kittle's obviously an A-list player. Purdy's obviously an A-list player. Where does Jauan Jennings fall into all of this? Well, we've got the roster right here, and A-list players are foundational pillars on the 49ers. I have highlighted in yellow. A lot of people have approached me, and they've said, hey, why isn't Jauan Jennings highlighted in yellow? Why isn't he a foundational pillar piece of this San Francisco team? And I just highlighted him in yellow. And I agree that Jauan Jennings has a lot of the characteristics that would lend one to believe that he is a foundational pillar piece. I mean, even last year, after Brandon Ayuk signed the contract, but then wasn't very good, and then obviously got hurt, and Jauan Jennings put up what should have been a 1,000-yard receiving season, people were saying, did the 49ers pay the wrong receiver? It was a fair question. I mean, Jauan Jennings was really good. And my answer to that is, well, they also did pay Jauan Jennings, but not nearly enough to reflect his value to the team and the type of commitment that you would need to show in order for a player to get highlighted in yellow on my depth chart. Well, the 49ers have a chance to rectify that this offseason. In fact, they may have to rectify that this offseason after Jennings went for nearly 1,000 yards last year and definitely outplayed the $30 million man, Brandon Ayuk. This was Jauan Jennings' contract, or is Jauan Jennings' contract. He signed it last offseason. It's worth only about $6 million a year. It is an absolute steal. Jennings is worth, I think, at least 3x that. Now, the 49ers obviously have some leverage here because Jauan Jennings is still under contract for 2025. But I think given the development at the receiver position last year with Ayuk falling off a cliff there for San Francisco, and with Jauan Jennings emerging as really the top wideout for the 49ers last year, given how important he is to this team culturally, I think that you treat Jauan Jennings, at least as far as extension timing, in this category. Don't let A-list players play on lame duck deals. Do not let Jauan Jennings play on this lame duck deal. I don't think Jennings wants to play on it. He is due to receive $1.17 million in base salary this year, and then he's due to be paid an option bonus of $5.6 million that the 49ers are going to have to distribute before September 1st. So that's about $6.87 million. I think Jauan Jennings needs to have a cash flow of at least 2x that coming in this season, because that way then you could secure Jauan Jennings for more years beyond 2025. The team also benefits. The good deals only happen if both sides stand to benefit from them. So Jauan Jennings, more money this year. 49ers, more team control. Remember that this guy is still only entering his year 28 season. Also remember that Jauan Jennings has never been a speed demon. Jauan Jennings is a tough receiver. I think that means his game is going to age well. I don't think that you're going to see a guy that hits 30, loses a step, and then is no longer able to get open or do anything on the football field. Jauan Jennings came into this league having already lost a step. He ran a 4.7 40. That's not how he beats people. He beats people with subtle body movement. He beats people with physicality. He beats people with toughness. He beats people with his brain. That's Jauan Jennings. That's the type of game that ages really well. That's the type of game that sets great examples for the rest of your receiver room. I mean, there was a reason that last year people were saying, did the 49ers pay the wrong receiver? And it's because Jauan Jennings was doing so much great stuff for the football team. I mean, I call him Tyler Durden. I think he's like the 49ers, the Brad Pitt from Fight Club. I still remember the respect that the Tyler Durden character was able to really conjure from his Fight Club contemporaries, I guess I would say. Remember when the restaurant or the bar owner came down there and just beat the crap out of him, and he's just sitting there laughing, and everybody's like, okay, well, this guy's for real. We all bought in at that moment. I still, every single time Jauan Jennings draws a personal foul penalty, doesn't retaliate, and against Arizona, he did not deserve that ejection. I think the NFL even acknowledged its mistake. But every single time he does something like that, where he gets under somebody's skin enough because of his physicality during the play, but then shows enough restraint after the play. I mean, the guy is showing leadership in multiple different ways. And then he goes off for 150 receiving yards against the Rams. And you're like, oh my God, this physical monster. I mean, this is the psychological stamina on him is obviously the selling point that everybody knew entering the 2025 season. But you see this guy who's able to bring that mentality to a football team is also able to give you A-list receiver production on any given Sunday. Well, of course, he's got to get some money this offseason. I think the 49ers would be smart to double down on Jauan Jennings. And I think obviously Jauan Jennings would be happy to no longer be as criminally underpaid as he is right now. So we've got Purdy, we've got Kittle, we've got Jennings. How about this? Do the 49ers approach Fred Warner a year early? Along the note of paying guys early, how about double early for Fred Warner? And the reason I bring this up is that the 49ers have very, very clearly trimmed this down to the core pieces. And whether or not Jennings gets that yellow shade, we'll see. But you've got Purdy. He will get paid this offseason. You got McCaffrey. He did get paid last offseason. You have Kyle Juszczyk. He did get paid this offseason. You have George Kittle. He will get paid this offseason. You have Trent Williams. He did get paid last offseason. You have Nick Bosa. He did get paid 2 years ago. You have Deommodore Lenoir. He got paid early last November. So the one that is still a little bit further away because he has 2 years left on his deal is Fred Warner. This is a look at Warner's contract. As you can see, the void year doesn't start until 2027. So he's got 2025 at a $17.65 million base salary, and he's got 2026 at that size of base salary. The 49ers also paid Fred Warner a $3.7 million buyback bonus in February. That was due on February 12th. To make sure that the 2025 and 2026 years didn't void. So he's going to be due more than $20 million in 2025. So the cash flow in this season, because of the buyback bonus, is still solid. The top linebacker in the league gets paid about $19, $20 million a year. So Fred Warner is still earning that amount of money in terms of cash flow this season. So there's not huge incentive on his side to get something done right now. But I think the 49ers can think about getting something done early because of how damn reliable Fred is. Look at Bobby Wagner's play. Bobby is 35 years old, right? He's in his mid-30s, still playing really well at the linebacker position, just earned a big-time pay raise of over 40% from the Washington Commanders. Fred is about to enter his age 29 season. He's under contract through his age 30 season. I think that you can, based on how reliable he's been, the fact that he played through a broken foot this past year, that tells you that Fred Warner is a safe bet to be a really solid player for you until at least age 33. He's a future Hall of Famer. This is the type of guy that you invest in if you're the 49ers. So why not approach him about it this offseason? The man just started a family. He's rooting in himself in the Bay Area. I think that an extension through age 33 that you architect in 2025 can help your cap situation as far as carryover money now. His cap hit's going to be $29.1 million. You can lower that with an extension. I know that the 49ers have not gone to players 2 years early in the past, but I think that their entire strategy that we've seen this offseason of focusing on those pillars makes it at least worth consideration. So the standard operating procedures to get these done with a year left still on the deal. We've seen that throughout the course of the past several seasons for San Francisco. That standard operating procedure works with Purdy. It's going to work with George Kittle. I think it should work with Jauan Jennings. I'm predicting that it will this offseason. But how about 2 years early for Fred Warner? If you're already going down this path of fortifying the pillars, focusing your spending on that, and then filling everything in with the draft or cost-controlled free agency, why not fully go down that path and make sure that Fred Warner is secured for the future, because this is going to end up saving you money. I don't think that he's going to play through a season. I think it was bad luck that he broke his foot last year. He's been so durable for the 49ers. I don't think he's going to have to play 3/4 of the season on a broken foot again. That's only going to make him better. That's only going to make the price tag grow when he has more leverage entering that lame duck year. So get the contract done sooner rather than later would be my advice to the 49ers. And, I call it the Mount Rushmore of early pays this offseason. Purdy, Jennings, Kittle, Warner. Get all 4 of those done, and your roster, if you're San Francisco, looks very, very solidified at the A-list core. This is how you build a football team. You're never going to be able to field 53 A-list players. Not with the salary cap, not with the financial realities of the league and the world. But if you can get guys at every single position shaded in yellow here, then you have a team that has 7 all-pros on it like the 49ers currently do. Then you really can't sit back, and you could draft at positions of weakness on your roster and positions of strength in the draft to fill things in. Then you do have the veteran leadership to guide a young, hungry, and fast roster. The 49ers, they averaged almost 29 years of age last season. The average age of the NFL player is 26 and a half. So the 49ers were ancient last year. And we understand why. They were knocking on the door of a Super Bowl. They wanted to just get the little bit extra to get over the hump, but they were reaching. They didn't quite get there, so they have to get younger. They had one path that was realistic this offseason. It was to get younger, but keep some of these really, really good core players. You're not going to tear the whole thing down when you have Fred Warner, when you have George Kittle under contract, when you have Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams under contract. You're not going to tear the whole thing down when that's the case. You're going to use those guys, recenter on them because these are, future Hall of Famers. And then you're going to pay the quarterback because he's damn good as well. And that's going to be your central core moving forward. And then you add the youth that has been sorely lacking from this team over the course of at least the past season. Realities age fast in the NFL. And that was the point of my article up on the San Francisco Standard. And I actually centered it around this financial reset. And I talked about the 49ers drop to number 15 in cash spend. And by the way, but once they finish all of this offseason business, and we'll see if they get all 4 of these done. I think Warner's obviously the least likely because that would be a departure from the way the 49ers operate. But if you're talking about the 49ers paying Purdy, think about the cash that they would have to give out this offseason. Say that it's $70 million this offseason I'm just comparing it to the Jared Goff signing bonus. Even if it's $50 million, right? Even if the cash spent this offseason is somewhere between 50 and 60, it's still going to vault the 49ers to number 1 or close to number 1. If you're spending on a new George Kittle signing bonus, that definitely is going to push them to number 1. If you're spending on a new Warner signing bonus, yes, that's going to push them even higher to number 1 in cash spent. So that's why this whole idea that the 49ers are cheap is just, it's lazy at best, and it's a lie at worst, because they were number 1 in spending last year, and they're on their way to being at the very top of the heap in spending again in 2025. It's just strategy of how they're allocating the money. And they're choosing to allocate this money on the A-list stars of this football team who have already done so much for them. So if you disagree with paying guys like Jauan Jennings, Fred Warner, and George Kittle, you can go ahead and raise your hand in the comment section. And I'm sorry to break it to you. Not we and in 2024, but that didn't work out for them in 2024. So now they are circling back to the more natural build through the draft around those core pieces. The article, which is up on the Standard right now, goes through some of the fallacies regarding the financial reset. We do talk, like I do have this. The 49ers are actually still right now in cash spend are at the very top of the NFC West. Arizona's at 240 million, LA is at 229 million, Seattle is at 143 million. That 49ers number of 253 is the lowest it's going to be in quite some time. That's going to shoot up once they get some of these big ticket deals done. The dead money fallacy is something that really irks me because people just don't understand dead money. So we talk about why the accumulation of dead money this season is not a big deal for the 49ers. They have pushed a lot of the salary cap hits into the future. That naturally creates dead money whenever you close out the bar tabs of players who are no longer on the team or whose contracts are terminated, kind of like Kyle Juszczyk's, but then you re-signed him. You're going to have to pay that dead money anyway if you're the 49ers, and they're doing that this season with plenty of room because they've created the room for it themselves. It's a zero-sum situation. You push cap hits back like San Francisco did with Luke Farrell's contract here. You could see the staggered cap structure. You push them back into the future. That means when the money that's shaded in these columns accelerates and hits in the present, you've already created the room to absorb it. So you're just moving water back and forth between sinks if you're the 49ers. The water is going to have to be dealt with at some point anyway, right? It's not like there's a new charge coming up here with the dead money. So this is a way for people to make themselves feel smart, feel critical, but you actually, in the eyes of people who in reality understand this stuff, you just seem really stupid if you're talking about dead money as if it's some kind of burden on the 49ers, because it absolutely isn't. What we should be doing is looking at contract efficiency. So, for example, let's consider Deebo Samuel's contract. This is another one that people get wrong, and I'm going to blow this up to be a little bit bigger on the screen for you guys. This is what I wrote on Deebo's deal. The 49ers ended up paying him over the course of his contract with them that they signed in 2022, $58.3 million total. That's how much ended up hitting Deebo Samuel's bank account. That adds up to $19.4 million per year. For perspective, $19.4 million per year on Deebo Samuel's contract ranks number 22 of all wide receivers right now. So it's not that much in the larger scale of things when you look at the receiver market. So Samuel made $19.4 million over 3 seasons where he averaged 1,158 total yards, 7 touchdowns, and numerous game-changing plays per season. It wasn't a financially bad deal for the 49ers, and they just decided to pay the bar tab later for a few years, and then they took it all at once here in 2025 with the $31 million dead money hit. But the dead money hit is a really foolish way of looking at things because it's just part of this tab right here. They were going to have to pay all of this against the cap no matter what. So 31 million of the 58.3 million had been deferred until they traded Deebo Samuel. But the total bill was 19.4 million per year for solid production over those 3 seasons. Unquestionably solid production. If you want an example of a cost inefficient deal for the 49ers, if you're really looking for that, go to Jauan Hargrave's deal. They paid him $40 million over 2 years, but he played only 19 regular season games. So they paid $40 million for 8 sacks from Jauan Hargrave and some shoddy run defense. That was a deal that wasn't good for San Francisco, not Deebo's deal. Deebo's deal was fine. Deebo was a great 49er. They even recouped the 5th-round pick when they traded him. That was solid business. Anybody who says it wasn't solid business is a casual. Just doesn't understand the business aspect of the game. But bad deal for San Francisco was Jauan Hargraves. 2 years, $40 million paid out, 8 sacks, and the run defense tumbled while he was there, and then he wasn't even available for most of the 2024 season. So that shows you why the 49ers are smart to restrain themselves in free agency. You don't get good deals in free agency most of the time. They were desperate to get more pass rush in 2023 when they signed Jauan Hargrave on the wrong side of 30. They got a little bit more pass rush at defensive tackle, but the run defense started falling off a cliff. This used to be a top 3 run defense. Now it's number 29. And they paid Jauan Hargrave $20 million a year for a contribution to a downslide in play. That was bad value. That's what the 49ers are trying to avoid. I get it. They were trying to kick down the door, win a Super Bowl, get a little extra juice because they only had 4 total sacks from the defensive tackle position in 2022. So I get why they wanted to get. I understand why they wanted that little extra oomph in 2023. But as far as building a foundation, it wasn't good for the 49ers. And they said, okay, well, we've been scratching and clawing to try to get the extra inch. We can't get that extra inch. We are regressing. This defense is old. It's slow. It's injured. We've got to cut bait with guys like Hargrave, guys like Malik Collins, guys like Leonard Floyd. Now, Floyd and Collins stayed healthy for the 49ers, but the run defense was a huge part of it. You understand now why San Francisco is recentering on the NFL draft instead of free agency when you look at how costly and how inefficient a deal like Javon Hargraves, which was acquired through free agency, was. This is why the money that you do spend, the money that is going to put the 49ers back at number 1 in cash spent, has to go to A-list players. Brock Purdy's been the most efficient quarterback in football since he joined in 2022. Yes, much better than Matthew Stafford. Those of us who actually deal in facts instead of emotion, those of us who actually have channels that are watched on the internet instead of tiny little viewerships because nobody cares about what they say. Those of us that do deal in reality will recognize that Purdy has been much more efficient than somebody like Matthew Stafford. He's been number 1 over the course of the past 3 seasons. He's going to earn every cent that he gets this offseason. He's an A-list quarterback in the view of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, and that's all that really matters. Whereas the Rams have actually flirted with moving on from Matthew Stafford. They're going to be able to keep him. We're going to see the details of that deal, but you see that the 49ers have a pillar in their quarterback right now, and they're going to pay him as such. You see that they have a pillar in their tight end, George Kittle. They have a pillar in their linebacker, Fred Warner, and I would argue that Jauan Jennings is a pillar for San Francisco as well. All right, those are the guys who are going to get paid this offseason. I think those are the 4 that should get paid this offseason. I would say you're going to see at least 2. I would argue that the 49ers should get this work done, or at least do their best to get this work done with all 4 of those players. Either way, it's hard to see the 49ers not vault their way back into the top 5 of cash spent once this offseason is over. They have gone through the rein back, they've cut the fat, and now the money's going to pour back in to the foundational beams of this football team. This show is brought to you by Mando. Have you ever lifted a little too hard or just forgotten to apply your daily deodorant and gotten hit by a truckload of BO from all directions? Does that 3-in-1 shampoo leave you needing a second shower just a few hours after the first? From the founders of Lumi, Mando Whole Body Deodorant is helping men conquer their odor in a new way. Formulated with mandelic acid, Mando has long-lasting 72-hour odor control that actually stops odor before it starts. Cologne quality scents. And I've tried some of this stuff out. They sent me some. And yes, it is a cologne quality scent. We're created with men in mind. Pro tip, try their best-selling scent, Bourbon Leather. It is a game changer. I can attest to that. Once you experience fresher underarms and fresher feet, you'll never go back. The special offer is that new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code and link. Use the code Lombardi at shopmando.com. That is shopmando.com. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. And as a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off of a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use the code Lombardi at shopmando.com. shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. Who gets paid? Who do you want to see paid? Let's go to the comments section. I appreciate that. Thank you. That is very nice of you. That's going to help buy me a burrito tonight when I get to San Francisco. Driverless car rides and lives talking about the 49ers are coming up here over the next couple days. I am in Visalia on the 559 right now. Going to fly up from Fresno to San Francisco in just a few hours. And I'll be headed to buy a burrito thanks to that $10. That's amazing. Here's a thought from 49er Ways. 49ers should get rid of Ayuk. I like Jennings, Pearsall, Kittle, CMC, and whatever wide receiver the 49ers get in the draft. Debo's contract set the 49ers back a year or two. No, it didn't. So, I mean, yeah, you can argue they should get rid of Ayuk, and maybe the 49ers feel the same way. We'll see. But how did Debo's contract set them back? Again, he ended up being paid less than $20 million a year, and he gave him over 1,000 yards a season when you combine all the yardage, whether it be receiving, running, or special teams. Multiple touchdowns, 21 touchdowns over the course of his contract. That's a lot. Many game-changing plays. Debo was a big part of this football team. You can thank him for his service and move on. I don't think that his contract set the 49ers back at all. He was a really damn good football player who probably still has some juice left. The change of scenery will be nice, and the 49ers are building this team now around the pillar that is Brock Purdy. So they need somebody who could separate a little bit better. But Debo gave fans a lot of good memories. Debo gave the 49ers an attitude. Debo delivered big plays, and he ended up making $58 million over the 3-year contract. That's a good deal for Debo, and it was a good deal for the 49ers. It ranks number 22 of wide receivers now. So I don't think there's any reason to trash Debo Samuel on his way out. I think it was a good partnership that ran its course, and now the 49ers move on to the next era at wide receiver. So here's a interesting thought on Jauan Jennings. He proved to be a valuable piece, but also showed he lacks the plus athleticism to warrant the top contract. 15 to 18 feels right. 20 plus is a mistake. Okay, so obviously that was what prevented Jauan Jennings from being drafted higher than the 7th round for $740, right? That's also, so there's no game-breaking speed there. But can the guy still get open? Does the guy still produce? The answers to both of those questions are yes. I understand the worry about, okay, the guy doesn't have lightning in a bottle speed. But if he can give you 1,000-yard receiving seasons consistently, and I think he can. Like I think that Jauan Jennings is one tough son of a gun who could give you consistent production if he's featured at the X receiver position. Then he obviously commands much more money than he's making right now. Now, whether that's over 20 million or not, I think that's where the delineation is coming here from this commenter, and I appreciate the comment. I think that you might be right. I think that the speed factor, though, is obviously part of a receiver's style. And when you're talking about a contract that you're giving to a receiver who's going to be 30 in a couple years, you have to consider how well that receiver is going to age. And I would argue that somebody who is reliant on 4.3 speed is probably not going to age as gracefully at the receiver position past age 30. Somebody who is not reliant on 4.3 speed, like Jauan Jennings, is more likely to age more gracefully, like potentially Jauan Jennings. That might actually be the biggest argument for more money for Jauan Jennings. But I think that we're in agreement that the $6 million that he's making right now, or however much it is, it's not a lot, is not enough for Jauan. I think that they've got to up this, and he's going to want this upped. And I think it would be smart business for both sides to execute that this offseason as he enters the lame duck year of his contract. Okay, if Debo was washed the last 3 years, how did he have over 1,000 yards on average and 21 touchdowns? You guys realize how hard it is to score one touchdown in the NFL? He had 21 touchdowns and averaged over 1,100 yards a season in 2022, 2023, and 2024. He had a bad 2024. We get it. But he was good in 2022 and 2023. He wasn't what he was in 2021, but he was still a good player. And 2024 had a lot of reasons why he didn't play well, including pneumonia, which he was hospitalized for. But this revisionist history is not going to fly on my channel. He wasn't washed in 2022 and 2023. The statistical production is clear. And with Debo, you can go outside the stats and you could talk about momentum, game-changing plays. If you don't have Debo Samuel on the team, you're not winning the 2023 NFC Championship game against Detroit. He had a couple catches that reversed the flow of that game early in the second half. And as Being Butterfly says, the entire team had a bad 2024 year. I think that's important to remember as well. Yeah. How can you say that Debo Samuel was washed in 2023 when he walked into Philadelphia and completely shut up the entire stadium? That was one of the best individual displays I had seen covering the NFL, and I've been doing this now for a while. So please stop with the revisionist history. Let's stick with the facts, and we'll all be better for it. Here's another question. Can Pearsall become elite? You say that he seems to miss his spots, but he was a rookie last year. So, obviously, he's not going to be perfect. He got shot in the chest on August 31st last year. He was already dealing with a hamstring at the time. He was targeted 18 times, and he produced big time over the final 2 games. I think that's as good of a sign as anything regarding Ricky Pearsall. So I think he could become a really damn good receiver. I hate to toss around the word elite like it's candy, but I think he could be really, really good for the 49ers. And we'll see if he morphs into something even more than that. But I think that the season ended on a very good note for Ricky Pearsall. Here's another question. I know we focus on separators for Brock, but do the 49ers need another Yak-style skill player like Prime Debo? How about both? I think that Ricky Pearsall is a really good separator, and he's also really tough. Now, I don't know if we'll see what kind of tackle breaking ability he has, but he's a he's a nifty player, right? He can really move. And Yak can either be done through bulldozing like Debo Samuel did it, or it can be done through movement, juking ability. I remember Ricky Pearsall's first touchdown against Tampa Bay. Remember, he ran the crosser, 49 kind of a post crosser, and the 49 and Purdy found him. And then I think it was Antoine Winfield that he got by. He kind of did the little stutter step and he sprinted by him. That was Yak right there. That was Ricky Pearsall understanding the spatial dynamics of the situation, throwing a little deception in there, and then sprinting toward the pylon and scoring a touchdown. So Pearsall delivered Yak, and maybe he's the guy that's able to give the 49ers both separation and yards after the catch ability. Maybe Brandon Ayuk is able to come back and deliver that at a high level for the 49ers. We know Christian McCaffrey is that type of player as well. So I think it's important to have Yak, but I think it's also really important to have separation, especially for an intermediate timing quarterback like Brock Purdy. Joe says, Brock to Ricky will become a thing. Watch how they connected in the past couple games. That's what I've been saying. It was over 200 yards, 18 targets, I think 14 catches over the last 2 games, a couple touchdowns, the one-hander against Detroit. Now, the very final game was Josh Dobbs, but the Detroit game where Ricky Pearsall went crazy. He had a lot of production in that game. That was Brock Purdy as the quarterback. This is a good one. The fan base isn't as knowledgeable as it was 10 years ago. The younger generation overreacts to everything. That's why this channel is the most watched channel. By far. Again, I have to emphasize that people are watching this one way more than anything else. I thank you for that. Hit the subscribe button to keep that momentum going. We're going to get to 100,000 real subscribers before anybody, which is awesome. Really appreciate that. And, I think that there's a demand for rational discussion, telling it how it is, going out talking about the contracts. We're not emotionally overreacting here. These are just cold, hard facts.